Good evening. During the months after the incident at the oil refinery in Spain, there was speculation in Gibraltar as to the possible dangers to the rocks population if the actual refinery had been affected by the fire. Informed sources say that the refinery is in fact a hazard to the adjoining residential areas and that it is basically too near to the towns around the actual Campo area. Reports say that despite the obvious danger, the refinery itself has an adequate protection system, and on this occasion it did prevent the spreading of the fire. If it is not damaged, it will work again in an emergency. If an explosion or a fire did occur in the future, the chances are that the whole refinery would not blow up. And other factors to consider in Gibraltar would be the direction of the winds and the flow of the tides at the given moment. In general terms, there should be enough time for planning a course of action to take. This course of action might mean the declaring of the major disaster plan for Gibraltar on alert stage. The major disaster plan, which already exists on a confidential or secret basis, was conceived to deal with any major disaster that might affect Gibraltar and covers every eventuality that could arise. The major disaster plan would be put into effect on the advice of the Chief Fire Officer, the Commissioner of Police, and the member of the Armed Forces who coordinates general defense matters in Gibraltar. These people are in turn responsible to the Governor. A joint disaster plan exercise recently took place in the Upper Rock area. We went up there to have a closer look. Involved in the exercise was Deputy Commissioner Joe Canepa, and we asked him to tell us about the joint disaster plan.
The joint disaster plan is a plan prepared in order to cope with any situation which may arise involving serious accidents, incidents, fires and other such things in which the public would be in any danger at all. 4 or 5 times a year we actually exercise on the ground involving most of the services and ourselves, and we also have exercises which involve communications or desktop or tabletop exercises.
Can you briefly tell us what today's exercise is about?
Today's exercise involves an Upper Rock fire involving St Michael's Cave. The scenario was set as a coach coming up to St Michael's went by some very dried brush. Something was thrown out of the coach, a cigar most probably, ignited the brush, which quickly swept up the rock, and smoke entered the caves. People inside the caves were overcome by smoke, people outside were injured by fire, and people in the cave had to be taken out very, very quickly.
These are situations that could happen at any given point in Gibraltar, is it?
These are situations that could happen anywhere in Gibraltar. An Upper Rock fire could take place, although a lot of precautions are taken. We have fire breaks, we have patrols by the fire service, the Gibraltar Services Police and ourselves to ensure that there is no accumulation of brush or dried brush, or that the fire breaks have overgrown. The fire brigade carry out inspection of the water hydrants and other fire fighting equipment up here. Precautions are taken, but of course in order to make sure that if anything did go wrong we would be in a better position to deal with it, we exercise ourselves with all the services in order to cope with this.
How do these exercises compare with the real thing?
Well, nothing can really compare with the real thing. The time factor is important. Some of us already know that this is going to happen, so it is a little artificial. The scenarios are artificial. Exercises or real situations would prolong over a period of from 4 or 5 hours to a couple of days. In our case, we normally have to do this within an hour and a half to 2 hours, so that no unnecessary expense is incurred vis-a-vis the employment of officers. In a real situation, there is an arrangement for a recall of both service personnel, fire and police. And naturally, again, in a real situation, we would very, very quickly turn everybody out. In a situation like this, only a skeleton crew is turned out. So there is a degree of artificiality about it, but we try to make it as realistic as possible, as you can witness the smoke and the injuries. As you've probably seen, the injured personnel have been provided by the military. They're real experts at providing the injured as they do, showing all these wounds and burn marks and all the rest of it, which really gives the first aiders, the fire brigade and the police quite a problem and a task to deal with.
What are the major problems that you would normally encounter during these exercises and in the preparation of these exercises?
Well, in the actual exercise, because Gibraltar is now well visited by people from outside, traffic is a major problem. Vehicles everywhere, they need strict control. We need to evacuate the area or remove obstructions as much as possible. People too, naturally, if they hear the fire brigade going up and down, they want to look on. And of course this adds to the problem, but of course it also adds a degree of realism to the whole thing.
In this case, access to the rock would be a major problem with the traffic that you get these days, wouldn't it?
It would, yes. This is it. The priority, in fact, in a real situation, is to evacuate people. Motor cars are a secondary aspect of the whole thing. If a vehicle is causing an obstruction, then it must be moved. If it is not causing an obstruction, then the vehicle matters not. It can stay where it is, and our concern is getting people away from the upper rock if this was necessary.
Have you virtually thought of everything that could happen, that could go wrong?
I think the plan copes with quite a number of things, and I think the planners in fact have thought of most of the things that could really happen.
Mr. Canepa, could you reassure our viewers that Gibraltar is a safe place to live in?
Well, yes, I certainly reassure everybody that Gibraltar is a very safe place to live in. These exercises are taken very seriously. They come under His Excellency the Governor. There is a high-powered committee to plan and to exercise people and to look ahead at possible things that could happen. And as I said, a very serious and professional view is taken of this, and therefore it necessarily follows that a job well done will ensure that we are in a position to cope with a situation of this nature.
We have just received information there's a one-man line at Lawson Magnus Cave. One search team has gone in. Over. Roger.
Chief Fire Officer Edmonds, you always get involved in disasters in Gibraltar. What is the joint disaster plan as you see it?
Oh, the joint disaster plan, as I see it, is a document which brings together the most of the emergency services in Gibraltar, the essential services as well, and it provides a fundamental document from which we can coordinate all the services in an incident.
Can you mention some of the incidents that are liable to arise in Gibraltar?
Well,
apart from today's, obviously.
Apart from today, you can get something like a tunnel collapse, burst reservoir, fire in congested city areas. Those were some of the few.
Fire is a very serious hazard generally, isn't it?
It is, because it alarms a lot of people. Because of the smoke and flames. A lot of people do not react to heat because they got too near. But smoke alarms people, and then they are afraid of flames, and we get people panicking.
What happened today?
Well, today it was a disaster situation in the cave, where we had an average of about 30 people trapped inside the cave, some outside the cave as well. And it was supposed to be a fire which had occurred on the slopes, involving later on involving a lorry or a bus, involving part of the cabin bar, and then involving the cave itself.
And is the fire service in Gibraltar ready to cope with situations like this?
I think so. The 3 fire services in Gibraltar, apart or exclude from the major disaster plan, have exercised fires in the Upper Rock. I think that we can provide the service and meet the demands of a major fire in the Upper Rock.
And do you feel that you have the infrastructure on the actual rock, like water, for example?
Yes, we have. Although there are now plans in the pipeline to improve the emergency water supplies in the Upper Rock, but the system as it stands now, it meets the immediate demands.
Do you find there is more demand on you at the moment with the influx of tourists coming into Gibraltar and more people and more traffic and a lot of areas of Gibraltar getting congested?
Yes, like the police, we are feeling the impact of the open frontier situation, and our average of calls from 3 a day has gone up to about 5 to 6 a day. So we are actually feeling the workload, an increasing workload.
Do you feel that today's exercise has meant that you have learned something for the future?
Well, we always learn from the exercises, whether it's a change in the operational situation, change to our approaches, or change to policies laid down. It's something which the committee will have to get down to it later on.
Station that the situation at your area being covered is under control. Okay?
Roger, Echo Charlie. Echo Oscar 2, Echo Uniform.
No army personnel up to now. There are still no army personnel required up to now, but let them stand by at the rendezvous point at Hughes Gate.
Echo Oscar 2.
Wing Commander Tony Carter, how are the services involved in the joint disaster plan for Gibraltar?
Well, basically, we have a lot of spare manpower. The Army have the resident battalion here, which gives us a lot of spare manpower. If there's a disaster on the airfield, we have the expertise to handle it with our aircrew and our disaster teams up there who are used to handling airplane disasters. And then we use the Admiralty Fire Brigade, as you saw here today.
How does coordination between all those people work?
Well, it's done by the Joint Planning Team, which it's the Governor's Joint Planning Team. There's one member of each of the armed forces on it, and we are controlled by the Colonel Joint Plans, who has now been known as the Colonel Chief of Staff to His Excellency the Governor.
Can you tell us about your involvement in today's exercise?
Yes, today we set the exercise up here. We started it off by releasing the smoke, and then as the exercise progressed and we got more and more fire engines up here and more personnel, so we progressed it across the face of the rock, and the fire followed progressively up the rock, across the rock, into the cave, and we were more safety at that stage because it was all going well and the fire brigade were handling it quite well.
What did you learn at today's exercise?
Well, we've learned one or two things, namely that we can't use two-way traffic on the upper roads on the rock. It's a bit of causes a hell of a traffic jam.
Do you think these exercises provide sufficient practice and knowledge so that in the future you can rectify initial plans?
Yes, it does. It's never the same doing it, practicing it, as it was if there was an actual disaster. However, you've got the expertise here to see what's going on, and when we actually do get a disaster, we'll all be here to advise people and to help people get it right.
Final report as far as the fire is concerned.
Echo Oscar 2, Echo Uniform, coming over. We also require a final situation report as far as the fire, over.
The Public Works Department DOE were notified about the Bowsers.
Okay. In fact, the Bowsers are available now at Hughes Gate.
They are there.
And if your people want them for cooling down purposes, because I was told that they had to cut down on the supply because of shortage of water. So the water Bowsers are there. If they want them, they can have them.
Right.
To your station at the
fires. The rescue, 20 persons rescued, 4 conveyed to hospital, and 1 last casualty in the process of being rescued. So 20 have already been sent to hospital.
The 25 involved are already been recovered.
That's right, sir. Okay. Stand by for your message.